Man, it's really tiring and frustrating at this point, guys, because it seems like we can't go a game without getting a negative injury report. Once again, another player has been struck with the injury cause once again, and the injury cause continues to plague our otherwise brilliant start to the season, guys. Ter Stegen has joined the injury list at Barça in today's game. Wild game, I must say, at the Ceramica against Villarreal, guys. Ter Stegen had to be substituted after he caught a corner, and it seems like it's going to be a knee injury. It looks really bad, guys. It looks really bad, and I'm worried to see to what extent we are going to be missing Ter Stegen for the rest of the season, because right now, obviously, Ter Stegen has been in the headlines for all the wrong reasons during the course of the past week for his performance in the Champions League game defeat against Monaco. But that is not to say that Ter Stegen is a hated man in Barcelona. First of all, I just want to add that I think some of the criticism of his person, not his performances, I think the criticism of his person in the last week has been over the top. I think people have been very unreasonable when it comes to criticizing Ter Stegen for his performances, and understandably so, because of course we are fans, we are humans, and we tend to feel these things really deeply. So it is normal to see that people were expressing their anger in several ways at his performance, and you could see that he also disabled the comments in his Instagram because of the online abuse that he was getting. Well, I want to make this very clear. Even though I was a critic of Ter Stegen during the week as well, I criticized him as well for his performance in the game against Monaco and his performance in some of the big games that Barca have played over the last few seasons. I am not against his personality. It is never a criticism of his person. It is rather a criticism of his performances, which could definitely be better. I just feel like Ter Stegen has to earn his place in the Barca goal and not just have that comfort of being the undisputed number one. Regardless of his performances, he knows that he's going to start games week in, week out, and that is why I feel like Ter Stegen has been complacent in recent weeks. But that is by the way, guys. Ter Stegen has joined the injury list in that game where we won 5-1 against Villarreal, guys. It was yet another win for us tonight against Villarreal at the Ceramica, and it was the perfect response to the disappointment in midweek against Monaco where we lost 2-1 in the Champions League. But our perfect start when it comes to the La Liga season has continued once again with yet another impressive victory against Villarreal at the Ceramica. Well, while the scoreline of 5-1 may be a bit misleading when you look at the context of the game and how the action played out on the pitch, because Villarreal made life difficult for us, guys. They made it really difficult for us. They had us on the edge so many times during the course of the game. But fortunately and eventually, we ran out 5-1 winners in a game that was full of positives for the most part. Lewandowski coming back to goal scoring form as well. But a big negative of the game was the injury to Ter Stegen, and like I said earlier in the video, it looks really bad. It seems like Ter Stegen is going to be out for a very long time, and time shall tell how long Ter Stegen is going to be out for. Right now, the injury cause has continued to plague our season, but credit to the boys and credit to the manager Hansi Flick, because we have continued to win in La Liga, and even though we lost in the Champions League in midweek, well, it is very clear that the game could have ended up either way if things had gone differently. So I think we are not supposed to blow that out of proportion, but focusing on the league, we have continued our perfect start to the season. That is 6 successive wins to begin the La Liga season, maximum 18 points gotten, and we are still 4 points ahead of our closest challengers, Real Madrid, at the top of the table. So this is a positive way to start the season, but the injury cause continues to plague Barca. Ter Stegen's injury tonight makes it 8 players who are out with an injury at this moment in time. That means Ter Stegen has joined the likes of Ronald Araujo, Frankie de Jong, Andreas Christensen, Fermin Lopez, Dani Olmo, and Marc Bernal, who has also been ruled out for the rest of the season. So right now, the injury situation is worrisome. It is really worrisome at this point, the injury situation that Barca are dealing with. Let's just hope that our players begin to return soon enough so that we can have a more balanced squad. Because when you look at the Barca team right now, it is filled with a lot of young stars, especially the bench it is filled with a lot of youngsters. But credit to the boys, they keep getting the job done week in, week out in La Liga, and we have won yet again in La Liga to continue our perfect start to the season. This was a very important game for us because following that defeat against Monaco in midweek, it was important that the team showed a positive reaction, and it was important to see the response that the team was going to give to that setback in midweek. Of course, when a team is being developed, there are always going to be bumps on the road, and it is the reaction that matters. And that is exactly what we have done tonight with this important victory at La Ceramica. Remember last season, Villarreal were one of the teams that beat us at our home ground, even though we won at La Ceramica last season as well. They beat us at our home ground, which sparked the Xavi departure cycles, where he came out after the game to say that he was leaving the club. Even if Barca won the Champions League, that he was still going to leave the club. And then afterward, he changed his mind that he was going to stay. And then we know what happened when Laporta eventually decided to fire Xavi. So it was the defeat against Villarreal last season that sparked all of that drama. But this time around, we have made light work of Villarreal. And I have to say that the game was not as easy as the scoreline suggests, because today we had a lot of nervy moments during the course of the game. We have all seen that Barca like to play a very high line under Hansi Flick so far, and sometimes while it could be highly rewarding, it is also highly risky as well, because sometimes teams tend to get in behind the defense and make well-timed runs, and they tend to punish Barca with those runs. And that is exactly how Villarreal got their goal after Barca took a 2-0 lead through 2 goals from Lewandowski. Villarreal played the ball in behind the defense, and remember, it was also the same tactic that got Monaco their winner in midweek in the Champions League. So Villarreal played the ball over the top of the defense, and they beat the offside trap. And Pepe, with a perfectly timed run, he squared the ball to his strike partner, Ayoze Perez, and he pulled one back for Villarreal. So it is very clear that while the high line can be highly rewarding, it is highly risky as well. And you could see that in so many other instances during the game, Barca were at the risk of conceding a goal, because I think Villarreal had about like 2 or 3 goals that were disallowed for offside. So credit to the boys for executing the high defensive line perfectly, but it could be a very risky tactic when teams get it very right. So I think there's still some work for Hansi Flick to do with the defense, but I don't want to put too much criticism on the boys and the execution of the defense today, because I think it was a highly weakened Barca team, even though we know that a lot of injuries we have been dealing with. But tonight, the starting lineup was still slightly weakened, because we saw that in defense, while Ter Stegen started in goal, we saw a change of personnel in the center of the defense, because Sergi Dominguez was handed his first start of the season, and he started alongside Inigo Martinez in center half, with Pau Kubasi getting a rest. Koundé continued at right back, but Balde was also rested, and we saw Gerard Martin getting his second start of the season. And Sergi Dominguez and Martin, while they did not play exceptionally well, I think they were decent overall, but the performance level was not up to the performance levels that we have seen Balde and Kubasi dish out since the beginning of the season. And I think that contributed to some of the shaky moments that Barca experienced during the game. And moving on to the midfield, we saw that Marc Casado picked up a knock during the dying minutes of that Monaco game. And it seems like Hansi Flick decided to be cautious with him today, because he didn't start Casado. Rather, Eric Garcia started alongside Pedri as a double pivot. That was his first La Liga start of the season, his second start of the season, following his start in midweek in the Champions League, where he was unfortunately sent up with that headline red card against Monaco. But he was given yet another chance again by Hansi Flick today. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but Eric Garcia did not justify his selection in the game, and his performance, his poor performance, or should I say his low level performance, contributed to why Barca struggled in the early stages of the game. Barca looked so much better when Casado came on in the second half, even though he didn't come on in place of Eric Garcia, but simply coming on to play alongside Eric Garcia was enough to see Barca improve and close out the game in a more comfortable fashion. But Eric Garcia was bad today, guys. He was really not up to par. He contributed to Barca's struggle in the middle of the park, and that is one thing that Barca really have to look into, because it seems like as good as Eric Garcia can be as a squad player, especially in that midfield position, I really don't feel like he is ready to be a starter for Barca in that position just yet. Even though it's just his first La Liga start of the season, his second start of the season overall, I really think his performance was not up to par today. And you could see that when Casado came on, Barca improved as a unit in midfield. In the first half, Pedri was literally carrying the midfield. That says a lot about the performance that Eric Garcia put in, because there were a lot of turnovers in midfield. Barca could really not keep hold of possession. Barca were struggling to keep the ball, and a major factor behind that was the performance of Eric Garcia. His performance was not up to par. It was clearly not up to par. He definitely has to improve if he wants to continue to lay a claim for a place in this team, because when you remember the fact that Frenkie de Jong is going to be joining the team soon, and Gavi as well is also improving in his recovery. He has been training with the team, so he's very close to a return as well. If those two guys come back in that midfield position, I am very much expecting that both of them are going to be playing mostly in that double pivot position. So that means that if Eric Garcia does not improve his performances, we are very unlikely to be seeing a lot more of Eric Garcia in that position, especially as a starter. Of course, he can come in from time to time during the end of games to help close out the games. That is not the same thing as starting the game. And his performance today against Villarreal leaves a lot of room for improvement. But overall, it was a decent performance from the team, because Pablo Torre, getting his first start of the season as well in La Liga, he contributed to the victory with a goal and an assist. He set up Lewandowski for the opener in the first half, and while he looked a little bit rusty, which is normal because of course he has not really played a lot of games this season, and during preseason as well, his momentum was halted because he was injured that period as well. So I think he did okay. Of course, you can never fault a player that ends a game with a goal and an assist. So credit to Pablo Torre. He staked his claim for a place in that number 10 role, because he started as the number 10, of course, following the injuries to Dani Olmo and Fermin Lopez. Pablo Torre got his chance as a number 10. And while he looked rusty, of course, he lacked match fitness, but overall, it was a good performance from the youngster, because he ended up with an assist and a goal. He scored the important third goal for Barca in a period of the game when Barca were quite clearly on the back foot. Villarreal were threatening to equalize, but Pablo Torre's goal, he made the game calmer for Barca, and it made it easier for us to see out the win with the two late goals from Raphinha. And speaking about Raphinha, what a player this guy is, what a start to the season that he has had. His brilliant start to the season has continued following the hat-trick against Real Valladolid before the international break, which saw him named as the La Liga Player of the Month for August. His good form has continued once again. He scored twice, the fourth goal and the fifth goal for Barca. He scored all those goals to seal the win for Barca, and his good start to the season continues. So congratulations to Raphinha for a brilliant start to the season, and his excellent form continues. We also saw him picking up the armband after the injury to Ter Stegen, as Ter Stegen was substituted following the injury in the first half. So Raphinha closed the game as the Barca captain, and in this new role, in the leadership role that he has assumed this time around, I think Raphinha is living very much to the expectations of a leader within the dressing room and the pitch of a big club like Barca. But another player that has continued to shine once again is Robert Lewandowski. We know what Lewandowski can do under the orders of Hansi Flick. We saw what both of them achieved together in Bayern Munich, and it seems like that blossoming relationship has continued in Barca as well, because Lewandowski has had an excellent start to the season. He is top of the scoring charts in La Liga, and it was 2 more goals for him tonight, and it could have been a hat-trick because he missed a penalty after Lamine Yamal was fouled by Eric Bailly in the penalty area. So Lewandowski has continued his excellent start to the season. That makes it 6 goals in 6 games in La Liga, a great start under Hansi Flick, and his goals have been a major factor to why Barca are top of the table at this point in time. Let's not forget that Lewandowski is on the wrong side of 30. He's 36 years old at this point in time, but he looks very much fit. He looks very sharp. It looks like this season Lewandowski is a man on a mission, and we hope that that mission will see him deliver trophies to Barca come the end of the season. But how can I finish the video without talking about Lamine Yamal, because he was brilliant once again. Well, today wasn't one of those days where he was the protagonist for Barca, but he still contributed his own quota to the victory. It seems like a game cannot pass by without Lamine Yamal having a goal contribution for Barca this season because he has once again continued to shine for us. In the last few games, the game against Girona and the one against Monaco, we saw Lamine Yamal putting his goal-scoring boots on. But today, what we saw was the return to the playmaking Lamine Yamal that we have seen. Lamine Yamal has been Barca's creator-in-chief this season, and he continued that trend once again. He played a part in the second goal for Lewandowski. His dangerous ball into the box, he was met by Eric Garcia, and the ball fell to Lewandowski inside the penalty area. And we know that Lewandowski is a fox in the box, and that ball contributed to Lewandowski doubling Barca's lead on the night. And just before the game was over, Lamine Yamal, he saved the best for the last with a Trivela assist. And outside of the boot assist, following a brilliant counter-attack, he set up Raphinha for Barca's 5th and the Brazilian 2nd goal of the night. And Lamine Yamal continues to wow us all in this brilliant season that Barca are currently experiencing in La Liga. But overall, while it was a shaky game for Barca, it was clearly a very open game, and it was a game that suited us, hence why we won 5-1. We left a lot of spaces at the back that Villarreal threatened to capitalize on several occasions, but due to a combination of bad luck and also a combination of perfect execution of the offside trap, Barca were able to contain Villarreal for the most part. We saw about 2 or 3 disallowed goals from the Yellow Submarine today, but we also saw them score a goal in the same fashion where they beat the offside trap and they went in behind the Barca defense and score the goal to make it 2-1. So this is something that Barca really has to perfect here, because there's going to be a time when we'll face teams that are more lethal and teams that will time their runs more perfectly, and that's going to be a difficult thing for us when we come across those games. But overall, it has been a great start to the season, but the injuries continue to be a negative, with yet another injury today for Marc-andré Ter Stegen, and it looked really bad. You could see that Ter Stegen was clearly disheartened when he was being stretched out of the pitch. We saw him with his hands to his face, covering his face. I think he was shedding tears there. He was evidently heartbroken to sustain this injury, and it is really unfortunate timing for Barca, because Ter Stegen, even though his form has been really bad in the past few years, he is still the #1 goalkeeper. His talent has never been in question, and also compared to some of the other options that Barca has at the moment, because Iñaki Peña was the one who replaced Ter Stegen. He had some good saves against Villarreal, but he is not as good as Ter Stegen. He doesn't ooze confidence like Ter Stegen does sometimes. Even though we know that Ter Stegen can be really frustrating to watch at times, Iñaki Peña is not on the level of Ter Stegen. And I think maybe, just maybe, if the injury turns out to be probably a season-ending injury, then I think that Barca may just have to seriously consider diving into the transfer market to sign a goalkeeper to replace Ter Stegen for the rest of the season if we want to compete for the La Liga title and the Champions League title come the end of the season. But before I sign out, I just want to say a very big thank you to everybody that has been watching on the channel, has been showing support to the channel, because the channel has been experiencing steady and slow growth over the last few months and weeks. During the course of the last week, we were able to reach 500 subs on YouTube. Thanks to all of you guys. You guys are the real MVP. I am very much grateful for your great support. Now we are on the road to the next 500, which makes it 1K. So let's get it, guys. With your support, I know definitely the channel is going to be able to reach that milestone. Let's get it, guys. Thank you so much for your great support. If you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like, turn on your notification bell so that whenever I drop, you shall be notified. Let me know your thoughts, guys. What do you think Barca should do following this injury to Ter Stegen? Should Barca go out to sign a replacement goalkeeper over the course of the season if the injury turns out to be a serious injury which could be potentially season ending, or would you back Iñaki Peña to be the Barca goalkeeper for the rest of the season? What are your thoughts about the game today against Villarreal, and who was your man of the match? Personally, my man of the match has to be Robert Lewandowski with the 2 goals, of course, but I would really like to hear all of your thoughts in the comment section down below, guys. But until next time, as always, Vitka El Barça, and I'll see you on the next video. Adios.